So. Hello, everybody. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good night. It's probably wiser to say good night where I am, as it is very, very late in the day on this rather is a hit and miss Friday. Bit of a hit and miss Friday. I suppose it's a bit of a hit and miss Friday for United fan base as well, because mixed feelings about um, the news that we've had today, but I think a much more sort of closer knitted feeling about the club itself and the situation that we're in. But we've got a game tomorrow, 12:30 kickoff time at Craven Cottage in London. Fulham away, and we're in a season in the Premier League. We are sort of split evens down the middle. Currently sat in 8th place at the moment, position in the table wise. 5 games won, 5 games lost. No games drawn, of course. -5 goal difference, so struggling for goals, but also struggling to keep the ball out of our net. Now, it's an away game for us, right? An away game, and Fulham at Craven Cottage poses its challenges. It poses its test to Manchester United. And for me, it's not, say, a feeling about, is the test, is the challenge too tough for United, or is it, is it an occasion that my club will rise to? I'm a little less concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the interior turmoils of the club. Where are people's heads at? What is it that people want? Because I've heard all sorts going on, all sorts being spoken. Players don't like Ten Hag. Players think he's too strict. Players don't understand his methods or don't like the way certain players have been treated. I think it's anyone's guess as to, it's everyone's probably mutual guess as to who it is that's being mistreated. That everyone probably knows. And whether you back Ten Hag on that issue or whether you back the player on that issue, and a recency bias, a very, very strong recency bias, maybe subconscious, a subconscious recency bias, that the players are those that we sympathize with more for some reason. And it's only really been prevalent to me. I suppose in the last 10 years before that, it was sort of an authoritarian figure that had the management role in Sir Alex Ferguson, and no one really questioned that. No one really tried to challenge that. But when it was challenged by a player, it was never a victory in the favour of the player. The manager always saw out the win at the end of the day in a dispute or a conflict. But it never really got, say, too political. It never went completely out of control. The situations were dealt with, from point A to point B. It was quickly dealt with. It was straight to the point. It was very cutthroat. It was very ruthless. We're faced with today problems in our squad where politics spill out. Politics becomes everyone's meal of the day. And by everyone's meal, I don't just mean everyone at the club. I mean everyone in the fan base as well. But you could also say fans of rival clubs as well, because word travels fast in the modern day. And for me, whether these players are in the camp of, supporting their teammates, regardless of what it is they've done, regardless, whether it's the players that support their teammates, or whether it's players that believe in their boss, their manager, the guy that gives them a career, and they have to reciprocate in showing that they deserve to be given opportunity when it arises. And now, people, whether you say, that certain players that you feel are mistreated in the United squad, oh, well, you know, they deserve more chances than what they're getting. They're a fan favourites. I mean, to me, fan favourites this, fan favourites that. I don't really sit here as fan favourites to players. I just say I'm, favourites and supporter, faithful supporter to a club, and I live and die by the stance that is that no one person or thing is bigger than Manchester United Football Club, and that extends to every individual that represents the crest, that represents the legacy, the history from its conception. Like, to me, I am not going to be a Ten Hag fanboy. I'm not going to be a Sancho fanboy. I'm not going to be a Maguire fanboy. I'm not going to be a Casemiro fanboy. I'm not going to be, when Ronaldo was here, I wasn't a Ronaldo fanboy. I wasn't a fanboy to anybody, to any one individual. Right? I wasn't a fanboy. I was appreciative to the good work that goes in, but I was critical to the bad work that was shown. And to find that balance for me was, I think to fans, it's got to be imperative, right? But when you are critical, it's wiser to, one, keep an open mind, but to, I suppose, be, trying to find the word for it. I think probably just open minded to it's probably the best way to describe it, because one thing's very obvious: when fans critique, they don't like something, they're very just one track minded. You see, when a manager doesn't perform well, sack him. When a manager has troubles or a player's fallen out of favour, I'll sack the manager. If a player puts in a bad performance, crap player. If a player puts in a good performance, Ballon d'Or candidate. It's very one track minded in the assessment, in the judgments of various elements in football. And I feel like where Manchester United are right now as a club, every individual should be under the microscope. And I mean through every level and aspect of the club. Everybody's got to be under the microscope. You've got to see, pick out to what's good and what's bad with everything at every single level. And not just, I'd say, I don't know if it's assimilate is the word, or just to stick it in that folder. Let's just put everything just in that folder, close it up, open and shut case. Manage, if your team loses the game, you've got to find something to blame. You stick with that and you say, well, if it's the manager's fault, then let's sack the manager. Open and shut case. It's a non-negotiable. This game against Fulham is going to be a further test of loyalty, I'd say, from individuals in the squad, to see who does back the manager, but who doesn't. And I suppose it would beg the question if the manager has still got the dressing room on side, or if he's lost it. Now, you could put in the comment section what you believe, whether you guys think that Ten Hag has lost the dressing room, or whether you think he still has got various people in there, players, under his stewardship that, fully back him. I think it's a little bit hard to see or hard to find those that when they put performances on the pitch, or when they don't, where are the people that do support this manager, who do back this manager, who are loyal to this manager? Because there's a lot of disgruntled figures from the United squad that media's having field days, absolute field days, right? And it's in full swing, right? When the media's in overdrive, you know that the manager's under threat. You know that the cogs are turning in the machine. And for me, I look at it like this. The manager is tried to do something to implement his vision and his ideology and his ideas at a club, and it's not worked. Ralph Rangnick wanted to do it in a short period of time or set it up for something else. He failed in his work. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a long-term vision, didn't work. Jose Mourinho had an idea or a concept, didn't work. Louis van Gaal had philosophies, didn't work. David Moyes had a very near impossible task, and as expected, didn't work. And a common denominator behind managerial failings is very centric around a cohesion of players that are unhappy or unsettled or not convinced. And for me, I've shown various moments of anger towards players who speak like this is, a theme park or a leisure holiday, right? That everything is like, I think I said it on a previous, probably a Newcastle match reaction, that they're Goldilocks. I called them might as well call them the Goldilocks squad. They don't like things too hot. They don't like things too cold. They don't like things too tall or things too short. They don't like things with long hair or things with short hair. They don't like things with any specific identity or personality or character. They don't like those things. And discipline is a very key factor in this assessment here. It's a very key factor because we've had various disciplinarian type managers before, and all the players have always said in the closing stages to the chapters of these managers managing the clubs that players don't like this, players don't like that, players question this, players question that. The players. And the media, they back the players, they never favour the manager. And these players will stay at this club. They will stay forever if they could. They would stay forever. Do you know why they could stay forever? Because the Glazers are in charge, for one. Protect the brands of the players, protect the best mates, those that then the Glazers employ, Richard Arnold, John Murtough, those guys below them, they're all best mates, they're all buddy-buddy, they're all pally-pally, they're all together on the same page. Players have issues, they don't respect the ladder of authority, they skip the manager and take issues to the hierarchy. That's what was quite prevalent in the days of Woodward. Skip the manager, go straight to the top. And the top would always reciprocate that. They would then go, we hear your concerns. Let's listen to what the fans say. So the players make the manager's job untenable, and the fans undeniably then get on the manager's case and say, hey, this manager isn't good enough. He's not the right guy. Then the board go, okay, here we go. Then they'll sack the manager. This time around, it's a bit more interesting because finances are a big question mark about it. Because, as I think has come to light in recent times, that if we've struggled for signing players and we've been against the concept of paying severance packages to players to get them out of the club, to me shouts that paying off severance packages for a manager is going to be very difficult. What should be very difficult. And then you've got to think about replacing him. And you've got to think about his coaching staff, the guy that you're bringing in. And then you've got to think about how are you going to back this new manager? Where's your money going to come from for that? And what's interesting is it was highlighted to me that every time that Manchester United have needed to replace the manager at the point of sacking, at the moment of sacking, the smoothest transition into a new manager that we've had was Ralph Rangnick to Erik ten Hag. But that was Ralph Rangnick saying, listen, like, take my advice, hire Ten Hag. We recommend Ten Hag. So he instigated, the interim manager at that point actually instigated the recommendation to hiring that guy to replace him in the managerial position. How the interim period should be conducted. But every other managerial sacking we've had to hire the interim managers to fill the void, right? It's fill the void quickly whilst we sort things out, whilst we hit panic stations. The board is not, they're not primed nor ready to replace Ten Hag. They might be ready to sack him, but they're not ready to replace him, and that's something that I think's become quite obvious to me. With your track record as such, they're probably ready to sack Ten Hag very soon, but they're not ready to replace him. So that to me is probably an interesting point of concern for me, that if Ten Hag were to be sacked, is who is the better manager that's going to fix everything for starters? Who's going to come in to solve the problems that everyone's talking about? And with everybody's selected choice, right? And you can put it in the comment section as well. If you were to replace Ten Hag, who would your preferable choice be? And your preferable choice, for one, probably wouldn't get backed for starters, but two, everyone has a preference, right? Everyone might have a preference. I've not thought about sacking Ten Hag, so I haven't thought of a preference to a manager to come in to replacing Eric. So I haven't covered that sort of thought or process of thought just yet. I say just yet because it's on the table. It's possible that it could happen. And I think with wanting other managers, if whatever your preferable choice is, just know that you've thought about your choice. For starters, the club don't care about your choice. But on top of that, they don't know what their choice is going to be. And on top of that, with the preferable managerial replacement, right, who you want to come in, a lot of people have heard talk about new manager bounce to compensate for this season. But a new manager bounce, are we going to get new manager bounce? Or is this squad, and this is a question I pose to people, is this squad too far gone in its mentality with each other to be on the same page to pull their weight for a new manager? So your favourite choice to replace Ten Hag will come in, but this squad might be so divided that they don't want to pull their weight, because why is that guy starting? Why is this guy starting? I don't like that guy. Why is he starting? So people with different interests, right? Different interests, different personalities, different characters, different egos, but people that have had problems with each other. And problems, I would say, because there's not really a harmony in this squad with this selection of players, this collection of players. There's no real harmony. There's no togetherness. There's no balance, right? There's no one wanting to go through hell and high water for each other. We saw a bit of that last season from a certain contingent that started games together. Varane and Martinez and Casemiro, I'm looking at you three. Those guys were very, physically like, let's bloody go. Let's do this. Various other players fed into that energy, so it looked like there was a bit more of a togetherness. But that's not prevalent here. But now the discourse is starting to set in, right? The discourse, the chaos, the madness is seeping in a little bit now, and it's concerning, to say the least, that the fact is that people are concerned that Ten Hag gets sacked, or he needs to be sacked for the sole sake of it, of concern about where the United could finish, and that United could potentially face relegation if things really drop off a cliff, and they could. And people want to sack Ten Hag because they don't want to run the risk of relegation because of how disconnected this team is. But you're pinning hopes on the new manager to come in to connect something that has not shown any drive or any desire to get connected when times get tough. Well, unfortunately, new manager will come in, times ain't getting easier. Times are only going to get tougher. Because why? There's no mutual direction, and there's no mutual agreement or mutual togetherness, to fight for something, to achieve something, to actually work on a project, to actually turn fortunes around, and to actually point yourselves in a right direction. We don't have a squad that is any interest in doing that right now. So any manager that comes in, are you sure about a new manager bounce? Are you absolutely sure? Because the squad, it's not like any other club I've seen. I've never seen another club with a playing squad so, dissatisfied, or so, so divided, ever. Like, I just don't. I've never taken personal account for any other club squad that has been in this kind of a situation. But not just this, but in this situation so many times, but progressively getting worse over the years. Because you hear it about dissatisfaction when certain players get played and certain players get dropped, and various other players have question marks over what happens to certain individuals and what doesn't. And to be honest, back in the old days, people wouldn't have any interest. They wouldn't have any interest in what the other player was doing. The only desire and interest here was you wanted to win. The only point of concern for you as a player, especially for being a Manchester United player, was how are we winning this game coming up? How are we going to win the game after that? How are we going to beat our next opposition? That was the concern. That was the priority. That was the focus. With the amount of politics we've seen off the pitch this season, just wrapping this all up into a look ahead to this Fulham game tomorrow, what's to say players have any interest whatsoever what the plan for Fulham is? I don't think they care. I don't think they're worried about what the plan against Fulham is. They're just going to turn up. Ten Hag's going to make noises with his mouth, and then they're just going to go, okay, cool. They'll go out on the pitch, and they'll do what they always do. And that's kind of the sorry state of affairs. So looking at Fulham, I would say that this should be a game to get 3 points in for United. It should be a game to get 3 points. Fulham, 9 goals scored this season with 16 goals conceded. So similar issues in the goals department as United have faced themselves, but obviously slightly better off, just slightly, just a little bit better off. Of course, it's an away game, and one big hammer blow, I guess, if we can call it that, for the United squad is that Casemiro is now out with an injury for several weeks. It could take a couple of months, could be out until January, rumour has it, or some reports have it. So again, we're now going to be lacking a little bit in midfield with depth, with quality. And the question now becomes, has the backup got the technical ability to carry through performances to secure 3 points in games like this against Fulham? Personally, I think we can still get a job done. We can. It would have to be a sort of a 1-0, maybe a 2-1 sort of victory. I hear a lot of people predicting us lose this game, and to be honest, I can't say that I disagree with the understanding as to why you'd believe that we'd lose this game. And others have gone with a draw. And again, that's a very respectable and quite realistic prediction for this game. For me, I think might depend a little bit on the team selection, might depend on the mentality. I think game plans. I think for talk of game plans at this point, that's kind of out the window now for me. We're kind of out of this point of discussion with game plans or tactics and approaches. It's all with mentality and just how much do the players, care on the day, and how badly do they want to get this win. I think that's going to be the biggest question for this game. If I'm going to be, I'll try, and for some reason, you might think I'm a little bit crazy for it, but I want to predict a 2-1 win for United. A 2-1 win because I think there's going to be plenty of glaring issues in tomorrow's game. But I want to say that there should be any chance of hope whatsoever, because if it doesn't end up to a win for Manchester United, if it ends up as a draw, maybe there was a little bit of there's a little bit of we tried but wasn't quite able to, band things together. But if it's a loss, but I'm concerned if it's a loss that's quite convincing, because it was Newcastle's B team, or some class it as the C team, that we played against midweek, and they battered us. The out of favour 11 of Newcastle United battered the slightly rotated Man United team. A lot of people might have said, well, look, Ten Hag's got to be done after that. I think if Ten Hag goes strong against Fulham and we convincingly lose, then I think I'm a little bit more in the camp of acceptance that the players en masse will have fallen out of favour with playing or trying or fighting for our manager. And then it's sort of the ball's in your court now, manager, not manager, the ball's in your court now, board, Manchester United board, Richard Arnold's, John Murta, who whatever weird concoction of a plan that you have waiting in the wings for a situation like this to crop up. And that to me is probably going to be the biggest concern. Is I'm sure it won't happen, but I could get this horrendously wrong. I've had plenty of predictions this season go horrendously wrong. I think it's just a case of hoping that it doesn't go wrong, and that tomorrow is a win on the boards, and that we push ourselves up to 18 points and put the idea of relegation or talk of relegation sort of beyond, or as close to beyond reasonable doubt as we can. So for me, I'll go with a 2-1 win just to cut the figure of a glass half full um, type outlook, whether that's blind faith or whether there's method to the madness. I'm sort of pinning this a little bit on hope. That's kind of where we are at the moment, I guess. Um, I want to know what you guys think as well about Manchester United going into this game tomorrow afternoon. And what do you think is going to be in store for United? Because based off of your predicted outcomes of this game, what do you believe is going to entail following the result based off your match predictions? Because I think that's probably where it's going to be interesting, where these different predictions pose different inroads, different outroads, different paths, and different sceneries. So it's going to be very interesting weekend, to say the least. A lot of people saying that Ten Hag could be sacked on Monday if all goes to pot against Fulham. Maybe it does. To be honest, I just do not know. I do not know if that's for certainly going to happen. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But for me, for what I hope to see, is that there's a little bit of, I guess, decorum, a little bit of, chill, calm, relax. It's a bit of they're very stormy seas that we're on right now, and a very uncertain future. Obviously, we hear that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's got plans, or big plans, plans of grandeur. We're still hearing Qatari hype men still, for some reason, backing Qatar to have a late swoop. I've seen some Qatari accounts still try to push the narrative that Qatar have actually got a deal done, or a breakthrough on a final deal in the last couple of days, based off of talks. But no one's spoken about any further contacts between Qatar and the 9-2 group. So yeah, Qatari hype men, I'm afraid you're going to have to hold this one, I'm afraid. But then again, it's probably going to be interesting to see what happens to the Qatari hype accounts if the Sir Jim Ratcliffe stuff becomes confirmed. It becomes a confirmation. It's going to be interesting. Maybe we're going to be served a ball out of left field. Maybe Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid's happening. Maybe the rest of the club, the rest of the Glazers shares are being sold to Qatar. Maybe there is a dream scenario where that's the case. And do you know what? I wouldn't be against that. Qatari ownership wants what's best for Manchester United. Sir Jim Ratcliffe will have no choice but to do what's best for Manchester United. If he's got Qatari groups with mass ownership looking over his shoulder, like, I see, watching what you're doing. So, it is what it is with those guys. They're clutching at straws, unfortunately. But the truth is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is poised to take the club. Obviously, no agreements yet. Not expected to have an agreement this week. It looks like there's just more and more delays, which poses a question of doubt. Where is this takeover? When is this takeover going to happen? When is the transaction going to go through? When is the change of structure going to happen? And the fact is that if Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to be a guaranteed bidder, the fact that everybody seems to know what the intent is, that no one's trying to set up or preemptively set up the club for Sir Jim to come in. That is not no one's even remotely looking at it. And I think it's because they know that there's still a chance that this might not happen. And that could be a little bit concerning in and of itself. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But let me know what your thoughts, your feelings about tomorrow afternoon are, what your score predictions, predicted lineups. As far as predicted lineups go, for me, it's going to be difficult to predict what a sort of lineup we're going to have. The question marks about Rafael Varane. Is he going to return to the lineup? Supposedly, he's listed on the sidelines with an illness. Others, I think it was against Newcastle that he didn't play because of illness, but that he was dropped in the derby for tactical reasons, and you know people just weren't happy with the idea that Varane got dropped for tactical reasons when the player taking his place was Johnny Evans. So yeah, read into that what you will. He's probably quite unhappy, apparently. Very unhappy, very dissatisfied at that decision. We'll have to see how that progresses. Obviously, no Casemiro. Luke Shaw rumored to be 3 weeks thereabouts away from returning to training. Lissandro Martinez, no, I don't think there was any confirmation on a date as to when he's come back. I've not seen one. Malacia, I think he should be quite close to returning. Malacia, Diallo as well. He's recently put out posts to say he's close to returning to training, which is, relatively good news in the balance of things. Relatively good news. As for the starting lineup, I think we all kind of know what the plan is. We'll vague image as to what the team's going to be. Got Onana in goal, probably Reguilon left back. If Varane's fit, then Varane will probably play. Lindelof will then move into centre-back position, with then Wan-Bissaka could probably end up starting on the right. He was in the matchday squad in midweek, and he may be subject to play tomorrow afternoon. So we'll have to look into that. We'll have to see if that's a choice. So I'll probably go with Wan-Bissaka. CDM, for me, got to be Sofyan Amrabat. Probably going to have Christian Eriksen or Scott McTominay, one of those two starting next to him. Bruno Fernandes playing further up top with Anthony on the right wing. You'll have Rashford on the left, and then Rasmus Højlund probably starting in the striker's position. So that's kind of my predicted lineups that I could probably see Ten Hag going with. Because he might be thinking, well, if it's posed as a stronger lineup and not the team that I rotate with, then this is a team that I would hope to expect to get a positive performance out of, but a positive result above all else. So hopefully that is going to be the case. We're going to have to see. Let me know, you guys, in the comments section, what your thoughts and feelings about this game are, your score predictions, your predicted lineups, whatever it is about tomorrow that you guys are feeling, but also what you believe the stories on Monday, the headlines on Monday are going to read. Also, if you fancy it, let us know. Share with the group as to where your position on the manager is. Are you Ten Hag in? Are you Ten Hag out? There will be no nastiness towards you. There will be no hostilities. It's just simply an opinion, a viewpoint, and the right for you to express that. So please, if you wish to share with us your viewpoints and your opinions, and if Tony Ibarra watches this, here's a pint of chocolate milk drunk in your honor, good sir. And obviously, big ups to everybody else as well who does watch the videos. On top of that, do be sure to smash a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I believe 115 subscribers, I believe. Let's double check. I don't want to go into my Google account page. I want to go to my channel page. So yeah, 115 subs at the moment, on the road to 125 away. Can we do that? That would be massive, massive achievement for us, and it'll be most appreciative if we could go and get that done. So thank you to everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. Best of luck for tomorrow for Manchester United. Please, football gods, go in our favour. Give us a weekend where we can be a little more chilled, a little more relaxed, and will be the first game played as well. So if we do get a positive result, at least we can be a little bit more laid back about the rest of the weekend. And I'm hoping that be the case. So we can enjoy other football as well as football fans. So, yeah, other than that, thank you for watching. And we will speak again soon. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you after the match tomorrow for match reaction. Do be sure to tune in for me after the match reaction, by the way. Match reaction, because I will be working tomorrow, will be later in the day, probably somewhere around 7ish, 6ish, 7ish o'clock, thereabouts, maybe. Um, I will be going live with that. It will be a live reaction, not an instant match reaction as such, but a live reaction nonetheless as to giving my verdict on what it is, what kind of an afternoon that it is that we would have had. But other than that, we'll see you guys tomorrow, and all the best. Take care and have a blessed weekend, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.